All right, anatomy students, welcome to the video lecture series. This is video 3 in the series on the reproductive system, and this segment is going to be starting talking about the female component of the reproductive system. And I went a little long on this one, so make sure you've got your water, your nice glass of ice water, and maybe a little snack if you're going to go ahead and get ready to start this one. So let's go ahead and buckle down and get ready. So without further ado, here's the beginning of the female part of the reproductive system. All right, anatomy students, and welcome to the next video in the lecture series on the reproductive system. Today we're going to start talking about the female component of the reproductive system, and I think we're going to find out that it is a little more complicated. So let's go ahead and get started. The general term for the female reproductive cycle encompasses the ovarian and the uterine cycles, the hormonal changes that regulate them, and cyclical changes in the breasts and the cervix. So it's important to note that in a woman's body after puberty, once she has become, has entered her reproductive years, there are two cycles going on at the same time. One is in reference to the ovaries and their preparation for ovulation. And the other cycle is the uterus and the changes that it is going through to prepare for the presentation of a fertilized egg or oocyte, aka a zygote. And we'll get into more detail as we go, but that just keep in mind that there are two things going on at the same time. Unlike the male, which is just one. And, you know, as we learned in the last lecture series, the male is just manufacturing sperm cells. So there is a noticeable difference in the complexities of these two systems. The ovarian cycle is a series of events associated with the maturation of an ovum. And of course, an ovum is going to be an unfertilized egg cell. This cell will be much larger than the sperm cell. As we will learn in the process of oogenesis, the formation of an egg, unlike sperm cells where we start with one diploid cell and go through meiosis, and at the end we get 4 haploid gametes. In oogenesis, we start with one, and we really only end with one. We go from one diploid to one haploid. That one cell is going to receive virtually all of the cytoplasm. The other 3 will have the 23 chromosomes, but they will receive no cytoplasm. They're referred to as polar bodies, and they are just reabsorbed by the body. This ensures that there's enough cytoplasm in the egg to warrant mitosis after fertilization, so that one cell can begin dividing and turning into 2 and working its way to 4 and then to 8 and then 16, 32, 64, so on and so on and so on until we reach what's called the blastula stage, which is basically just a ball of cells. And we go further and further. But just remember that in the maturation of an ovum, we're only going to get 1 for 1. One haploid cell from one diploid cell from the end products of meiosis. The uterine, also commonly referred to as the menstrual cycle, involves changes in the endometrium to prepare for the reception of a fertilized ovum. So let's talk a little bit about this word right here, the endometrium. The endometrium is a lining of the inside of the uterus. It is important for this lining to be there and to be fresh and ready to go during a woman's period. If there is no pregnancy, this lining of the uterus is shed and discharged during a woman's period. And the whole reason for this is there is no pregnancy, so the uterus is getting rid of the old layer called the endometrium, and it's going to lay down a new layer of endometrium in the preparation for a presentation of a fertilized egg or a zygote. There are a few different kinds of estrogens that are in a woman's body. We're really only going to focus on just referring to them all as estrogen, and their primary jobs are as follows. Number one, their job is the promotion of the development and maintenance of the female reproductive structures. So that would be the ovaries, fallopian tubes, also known as the uterine tubes, the uterus, the vagina, so on and so forth. Secondary sex characteristics, such as a changing of the pelvis during puberty. A woman's pelvis is different than a man's in its structural design, because a human being will have to go through the pelvis during childbirth. So the angle of the pubic bone is wider and will allow the baby to pass through that birth canal. And that is why a woman's walk and her hips will have a different shape than a man's. Other secondary sex characteristics, of course, will be the breast development and the growth of some body hair. The second job of the estrogen is the regulation of fluid and electrolyte balance. This is going to be important during pregnancy. A developing fetus, embryo and fetus, draw a lot of nutrients and electrolytes and oxygen and so on and so forth from mother's blood. So it's important that mom has ample electrolytes and nutrients and oxygen supply for that baby. Also, there will have to be, the estrogens are responsible for the stimulation of protein synthesis. Okay, let's begin with the female reproductive cycle. The whole thing may be divided into 3 individual phases. During the menstrual phase, also known as menstruation, the stratum functionalis layer of the endometrium is shed. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. That is the lining of the uterus. It is discharged. If there is no pregnancy, if there is no implanted fertilized egg, or at this point a ball of cells or blastula, if there is no developing zygote or ball of cells, again, blastula present, then that lining of the uterus is shed, also with some mucus, blood. There will be some body fluid, and of course the epithelial cells, which would be the endometrium itself. And this is typically what we refer to when a woman is, I'm throwing up my air quotes here, on her period. It lasts roughly the first 5 days of the cycle, and this is important. When counting days, ladies, I'm sure you know this, gentlemen, you probably don't, that when a woman counts her days on her 28-day cycle, day 1 of those 28 days is the first day of her period. And of course, that will mark the first day of the new cycle. Also during this phase, so now we're going to shift. So that's what's going on in the uterus. Now we're going to talk about what's going on in the ovaries. The ovarian cycle is in operation. Ovarian follicles, called primary follicles, begin their development at birth. Each ovary contains about 200,000 primordial follicles, which will contain an immature egg or oocyte, each consisting of a primary oocyte, which is what I just said, surrounded by a single layer of follicular cells. These cells are going to protect and care and nourish those immature egg cells while they're waiting their turn in line. During the early part of each menstrual phase, 20 to 25 primary follicles start to produce very low levels of estrogens, which means they're getting ready to possibly mature an oocyte and ready for ovulation. Toward the end of the menstrual phase, days 4 and 5, about 20 of the primary follicles develop into secondary, also known as growing follicles. And this starts the beginning of maturing those eggs in the preparation for ovulation. A secondary follicle consists of a secondary oocyte or egg and several layers of cells formed by division of single cell layer of epithelial cells around a primary follicle. So this is there will be cells around the egg that will begin to form and help it develop. The next phase would be the pre-ovulatory phase or proliferative phase. So clearly this is going to be before ovulation occurs. It's the time between menstruation and ovulation. This phase is more variable in length than the other phases, lasting on average from days 6 to 13 in that 28-day cycle. During this phase, endometrial repair occurs. So the reason this phase will vary in length is it all depends on how long a woman will be on her period and when the ovaries decide to ovulate or release an egg. If ovulation occurs early, then the pre-ovulatory phase naturally will be shorter. If a woman, if her period lasts longer, then the start date of the pre-ovulatory phase will be later. And obviously then, depending on when the ovaries will release the egg, or also known as ovulation, that will change the length of the pre-ovulatory phase. And again, notice we have some endometrial repair. So the endometrium, or the lining of the uterus, is getting ready to receive a fertilized egg. During this phase, primary follicles develop into secondary follicles, and a single secondary, occasionally more than one, develops into vesicular ovarian, also known as Graafian follicle, or a mature follicle. So of those 20, only 1 or 2 are going to move on and develop. And again, we're back into the ovary. And so now we're talking about what eggs are going to mature. So remember, we had about 20 of them move on and kind of start the process of maturing. But of those 20, only 1 or maybe 2 will actually move on to the next level and go on to a vesicular ovarian follicle or the Graafian follicle. And this is also sometimes referred to as a mature follicle. So these are going to produce those eggs. This follicle produces a bulge in the surface of the ovary, and that's going to come into play here in the next few slides. Ovulation. Ovulation is the rupture of the vesicular ovarian or Graafian follicle with release to the secondary oocyte into the pelvic cavity. So let's dispel a couple misnomers. Number 1, there is no pore or opening or any type of orifice on the ovary for the egg to be released. If you go back to the slide, the ovary will rupture. It will break open and release an egg. And if you notice, it says into the pelvic cavity. So the other misnomer is that the ovary and the fallopian tube are directly connected. so that once the egg is released from the ovary, it will go straight into the fallopian or uterine tube. And technically there is a gap, there is a space there. So the fallopian tube has to draw the egg inside it. There is a possibility that that egg will not be taken up by the fallopian tube and will just be released into the woman's pelvic cavity. It's slight, but it is possible. So those are two common misconceptions associated with woman's reproductive structures. Number one, the ovary ruptures during ovulation. There is no designated port or hole in the ovary for that egg to be released. It's simply the ovary ruptures, it breaks open, and the egg is released into the woman's pelvic cavity. There is no direct connection between those two structures. Now, the gap is not very big, but it is still there. This usually occurs on day 14 in a 28-day cycle, and this is no rule. This is, again, the law of averages. Some women will ovulate on day 12. Some women will ovulate on day 16. It all kind of depends on the woman's body. Again, it's not etched in stone. Signs of ovulation include increased basal body temperature. So there's a slight, a woman may go, if she normally runs, and of course during this time, and I'm going to air quote again, these unprecedented, challenging times as we're battling this COVID-19, we have been taking our temperatures a lot. So you probably are aware on almost daily basis what your temperature is. So if a woman will go, if she normally runs at 98 degrees, if her temperature goes up to 99 and a half, or, just a slight increase, then that could be a sign of ovulation. It's not a smoking gun, but it can be a sign. Under closer examination, there will be a stretchy cervical mucus. And again, for those of you who don't know, the cervix is the opening. It's kind of a narrow tube that is the opening to a woman's uterus. So there will be a cervical mucus over that opening. There will be changes in the uterine cervix, again, the opening to the uterus. And since they're rupturing open, there may be some mild ovarian pain. My guess, I don't have ovaries, so I've never gone through ovulation. My guess is that when a woman ovulates, if she even realizes that she is ovulating and notices that ovarian pain, she probably passes that on for something else. Spicy food or a gas pocket or a muscle cramp or that kind of something like that. Again, I can't draw on any lifetime experiences because those are some body structures that I'm not equipped with. Following ovulation, the vesicular ovarian or Graafian follicle collapses and blood within it forms a blood clot on the ovary. This blood clot becomes the corpus hemorrhagicum. That's a fun word to say. The corpus hemorrhagicum. And this is going to form on the ovary. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the upcoming slides. This clot is eventually absorbed by the remaining follicular cells. In time, the follicular cells will enlarge, change character, and form the corpus luteum, or yellow body. The corpus luteum secretes estrogens and progesterone. It's secreting these hormones so that if that egg that was just released if that egg becomes fertilized, then the woman's hormone levels will be high enough to help support that implantation of that fertilized egg. And this is where, we talk about the hormonal shift a woman goes through during her reproductive years. And this is where those estrogen levels are going to peak, and they will climb. And this is definitely one of the times where we will notice a drastic change in a woman's hormone levels. That's not just an old wives' tale. The post-ovulatory phase, clearly this is going to be the phase after ovulation. This is going to be the third and final of those phases. This is the most constant in duration, meaning it lasts the longest. It goes usually, if a woman ovulates on day 14, then that means the post-ovulatory phase will be from day 15 until the end of her cycle, which again, on average, is going to be day 28. So days 15 through 28 in that 28-day cycle. So about 2 weeks, roughly, give or take a day or two. The time between ovulation and the onset of the next menstrual period, which again, just a reminder that when a woman, the first day of being on her period, that is the first day of the new or next menstrual cycle. So post-ovulatory is going to be that last section from days 15 until 28. And as soon as she starts her new cycle, that reproductive cycle is over and she will start again. And I think the thing to remember is that a woman's body during her reproductive years is trying to get pregnant every 28 days. Everything that needs to happen, all she needs, all her body needs is a viable sperm cell to fertilize that egg. Everything is there. Her body is setting the stage to become pregnant every 28 days. And I think that's something worth mentioning. In her mind, she may be saying, I don't want a baby right now, but her mind has nothing to do with it. It is definitely up to her body, and her body is ready to, during her reproductive years, is ready to help propagate our species. Okay, I think that is going to be a good place to stop. All right, I told you that was going to be a long one. You made it through. Nice work. As always, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to answer any and all the questions that you may have. Don't forget, as always, click like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.